one of the things that I tell young people, your boss is not your equal and they are not your friend. One of the biggest career lessons is, look, if you're not, if you don't put yourself out there, it's likely you won't be considered. And I say it's a career lesson, but it's a philosophy I have used for a long time. Just in my personal life, I was telling someone this yesterday. I have never had the money to buy a house when I'm starting. But I sign up, I commit, and I have, in many cases, completed it. So if you wait until you have saved and got all the money, that time will never come. So you just need to get started. There's a saying in my mother tongue, which is Kijaluo. It says chaka chaka. I don't know if you know anything about Luo. That just means just get started. Very important. And, to be honest, I've built a very strong network of people. For men, I think it's a little easier. They rely on friends they meet in bars and their social circles. They play, they golf together and so forth. So it's a lot easier for men to network. Just the way society is, it's a little bit harder for women to have, old girl networks that operate in the same way. We have a lot of responsibilities at home, in the society, at a social level that makes it harder for us to network. But that doesn't mean we can't do it. So for me, for example, I used my professional networks. I joined various professional bodies in the accounting profession, internal audit profession, tech, and so forth. So I had multiple forums that I would use to network, because that gave you an excuse technically to get together, and then that helped. So things like ISPAC when I was in Kenya, I did that abroad. I do that everywhere I go. Even now when I'm in Washington, one of the first things I joined was the Institute of Internal Auditors in Washington, D.C. I joined the D.C. chapter. It's just an easy way to start getting to know people. So that's one that I do. But I also just have a lot of people, when you've worked for a long time, stay in touch with people who you worked with, colleagues, former colleagues. You develop very strong connections. They move to companies. Many of the people I worked with are CEOs, CFOs, board members. So I try and stay in touch with them as well. First of all, we are in different generations, yeah? So I recognize that the advice I would give them may or may not apply to their generation. But I try very much to give them advice that I think is still relevant. So for instance, one of the things that I tell young people, your boss is not your equal and they are not your friend. And I think young people really struggle with this. Many of them are in startups and this kind of company is started by young people, and they treat the boss as a friend. It's really tricky to sort of mix those two, and it further down the lines from even their experience, eventually, it creates problems. So I try to get them to respect authority and roles and try and understand your contribution to the organization as a whole. So that's one of the tips I give them. They don't always listen, and I guess it doesn't necessarily always work, but that's what I would say. This is not a place for... Young people are very into passion. I'm doing this because I'm passionate about it. It aligns with my values, that kind of talk. In our time, that was not an issue. Your passion, your values were irrelevant. You took the job that you got because you needed the money and you didn't have a fallback plan. So I also try and tell them to temper their passion and really be realistic about what a job is and a career, in that it should provide you with financial support initially. You can have hobbies, you can have things that align with your passion and your values. If you can find a job early enough that does all three, fantastic. But chances are you don't even know your passion for life, your purpose for life very well at that stage. You know, the best investment. First of all, you know, my tribe, my PhD. That's probably the best investment I've made. Partly because it's the only thing I have on my CV, that the only qualification or certificate that I gained that was not intended to provide me with additional opportunities. Yeah, I did it for myself. I really did it. I was interested in studying a certain subject, and then I chose to do it in a certain school, and I shaped it to the area of interest, which is women in leadership. That's really what I did. It was a DBA in leadership.